Well, welcome to another edition of Digital Photography. And I'm going to go ahead and record this class here. So I'm just going to mention that it is late February 2020. We're at actually 2021. So yeah, we're lucky today. We got Mr. Robbie Brindley here. And this is going to be kind of a fun day because I've known Robbie for kind of a long time now, but we usually mainly have interactions around low-key arts and events like that. For quite a number of years, we both volunteered at the upstairs of the Valley of the Vapors Music Festival. Robbie would do portrait photography and I would do videos, so we would kind of have our little booths next to each other for a lot of years, and it was always quite a lot of fun. But I didn't realize until we talked a few days ago that you had actually gone to National Park and you took some photography classes.
I did, yeah.
You were back
I think when we were still, like, there were only 2 digital classes and the rest were film. Like, even the portrait classes, we shot on 4x5 film.
Oh, you did? Really? Wow, okay.
Yeah, so which is probably why I'm so, like, a film guy. You know,
okay.
I don't really shoot digital anymore at all.
Oh, wow.
I don't even have a digital camera anymore.
Oh, is it really? Okay, wow.
Yeah, I went the complete opposite way.
Uh-huh. Yeah, and did you get started, and when did you first get interested in photography?
Probably through Polaroid stuff when I was like 18 or 19. Just shooting the instant stuff. I liked that, and I shot that, probably up until, I guess we kind of still shoot it, but I was pretty into that until college, until National Park, and then I had to get a 35 millimeter camera and a digital camera. So probably for like 4 years, I only shot Polaroids.
Oh, wow, okay. And are you still able to get film for Polaroid?
A company makes it. This company, Impossible Project, they ran out of the chemicals. Polaroid did, so this company had to reinvent the film basically. So it's not as good of quality. It like looks kind of like it'll come out looking like Super 8 film a little bit, like kind of faded and kind of weird, and it's kind of unpredictable, which was nice for a while. But when you're spending, I think it's like $20 almost for 8 photos, it's just not it's not as fun. But you used to be able to buy Polaroid film for, it would be like 20 photos for like $10, which was super cheap. So that was, and not knowing how to do 35 millimeter or not knowing what ISO was or anything like that, the Polaroid stuff was just easy when I was younger. But when I went to National Park, we started shooting 35, and then I got into digital, and then I think I've sort of digressed and just gone back to film entirely.
Oh, okay. And just I kind of wonder how many people have shot Polaroid in this class, but you want to just maybe give a little, like, quick little nutshell of how a Polaroid works?
It was basically like you would take a photo and people have probably used the Instax stuff, it's like the same as that, like all the chemicals are in the actual photo. And when you take the photo and when it rolls out, it spreads the emulsion over the photo, and then it develops inside that plastic. So then that's why you can like see it kind of come to life.
Yeah, I remember that what I always like to do is take the photo, and when it's developing, crack it a little bit, and
yeah,
start to
well, with that, there was this other type of film that they quit making in the early 2000s, and it was I don't know if you remember the Time Zero that you used in an SX70, but you could use, while it was developing, you could use like a pen or something and kind of move the stuff around while it was developing and make it look like an oil painting. And so
Wow.
you could do that. People did that stuff too, and that was kind of neat. But
Oh, wow. So yeah, so I've seen some of your work and locally in Hot Springs, and you mind just kind of giving a little rundown of some of the places that you've shown your photos at?
yeah, I've shown at Emergent Arts.
It's
I've
all local
shown at Collective at the coffee shop, and then sort of more recently, I signed to Justice Gallery in Hot Springs. So so she's kind of representing me right now. Um, and there were plans kind of like to show around the state and outside of the state with this current project, but COVID kind of killed all of that.
Uh-huh.
So
Yeah, and when you say being represented as an artist, maybe talk a little bit about that, about how that works with Justice.
um, well, I have structure. I have a boss now. Um, you know, I kind of run everything through her, like my ideas and everything, and um, she sells my work and takes a certain amount, takes a commission. Um, but it's good to have that too, because as an artist, um, I don't have like probably the best people skills. But and like I'm also really bad at like, it's really hard, and I struggle with this, and this is like part of the reason why I don't do freelance photography anymore, is because it's really hard to put a price on something that you created, or like to put a price on your job. I have a really hard time with that, and I struggle with that. And so to have someone that's like, okay, well, this is how much time and money you put into this. This is just what I'm going to price it at. So I have nothing to do with it really, which is kind of nice, just because I'm so indecisive and scared to, I always struggled with well, like, it's hard to say, like, well, I'm going to charge $500 for like the portrait, yet I don't really, I don't, I don't know, like, I don't know, like, the price like means nothing to me. Like, that's why I was always better off volunteering and stuff too, because really bad at like putting a price on myself. So having someone else do it definitely makes it easier and takes a lot off of me.
Yeah, I think that's a big struggle with any artist, but then especially
Mhm.
with a photographer when you're talking about, like, for instance, a Polaroid, it's
Yeah,
almost like a painting because
yeah.
it's
There's only one.
uh-huh. So yeah,
Yeah, and I try to do that too. Like, I don't, because you were asking me about influences, and like, there's a couple of photographers I like, but a lot of them are like painters, like Georgia O'Keeffe and like people like that, like, or just like writers. So with my photography, I really try to, even if when I shot digital, I would only try to create one print, um, because I think like that's what gives it value. That's what gives art value, is the limited amount of something. Um, So even, and that's probably why I like the dark room in the film and stuff. But I try to, yeah, only create one of each thing. But that's kind of hard with digital, because and even scanning in film, which is digital at that point, you can just print off as many copies as you want. But I think that kind of takes away the value too.
and we'll get to your actual photos here in a minute. But do you have a studio or a dark room in your home?
No, I used to have that. I used to, at our old house, I had a dark room in the storm cellar, and that's where I did a project on, I don't know if you have any students from Mountain Pine, but I did a portrait project on that town, and that's what showed at Emergent Arts. But I did all of that in my dark room that was in our storm cellar at our old house, and it had really bad ventilation. Did I ever show you that? Did I ever take you down there?
I know, I don't think so. I
No,
saw the show. I think saw your show there.
yeah, it was just, there was really bad ventilation, and like the chemicals would like crystallize in my nose, and it was just like, I shot like basically that town's like an abandoned logging town for the most part. So shooting those photos and working under that environment felt like they went like they went hand in hand. So, but no, I don't really have anything like that anymore. I just sort of I send my stuff to a lab to get developed, or I'll do photo finishers, and then I'll scan in my negatives, and then that they're digital, and then my person that prints my photos is out of Little Rock, so I have to drive up to get my prints. I try to do everything locally sourced, but no, I don't. I don't have a printer. I don't even have a scanner. I have to get a friend to scan my photos. I'm kind of worthless as a photographer sometimes.
Well, well, great. Well, let's see here. Let's go ahead and.
Am I setting a bad example?
No, I think that's good. Yeah, I think that's what everybody needs to hear, actually. So great. Yeah, so you've been toiling, kind of toiling away at it for kind of a while now. Good.
Yeah, 11, 12 years.
Uh-huh.
Yep.
Yeah, well, very good. Let's see here. Let's go ahead and share. I'll share my screen and we'll take a look at our photos, and the students actually get extra credit if they ask any questions. So hopefully we'll sort of keep an eye out. If I'll try to keep an eye out on the chat, and if anybody else has a question, you can just go ahead and shout it out. But yeah, you sent me, let's see here, probably about 15 or so photos. And we don't have a real big structure here, but I figure we'd just go ahead and look through some of them. Any of them that you might think would be good to look at first, or maybe just go in order?
We can go through the VOV photos first, because those are digital. We can go in the direction that I like kind of have digressed or progressed, I guess.
Yeah, and yeah, just to kind of give everybody, I think we talked about it a little bit earlier, but yeah, the Valley of the Vapors Music Festival normally happens every year in March, but of course this year they had to cancel it. Or well, last year they had to cancel it. This year it's being postponed, and there's a rumor that they might try to do it at Cedar Glades Park, maybe in October.
Yeah, so, that's what I heard too. I heard the same thing.
Yeah, so we'll see. That'd be pretty neat because it would be I think they'd have camping, and it would be sort of like an actual outdoor music festival, which I don't think has happened before. So yeah, and here's one of our Arkansas musicians here.
Yeah, this is kind of like when I was shooting more digital. You know, I was doing a lot of portraits and stuff for around Hot Springs. We were shooting weddings and stuff too at the time, just sort of completely in love with photography and commercial photography mostly. But yeah, doing these every year was great. But I used like a really simple setup with like a painter's drop cloth and shot them in black and white, and usually just one light to the left. You know, I don't know if this is true. I don't know if you've heard this, but like in Thomas Patello, like he always told me to always light like the left or to the right of them, like that subject, because a person's eyes read like left to right. Like we're trained to read that way. So I don't know if there's any truth behind that, but that's the way I did it. It makes sense when I heard it, but I was like, oh, okay, so that's just how we do it. I thought like maybe I heard that in photography class too, but wasn't paying attention.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Like one thing I've noticed on Zoom with a lot of people, some people have one eye that's naturally opened a little bit wider than the other. Everybody else has noticed that, but I think it's usually the the right eye that's usually open.
Oh, maybe that's another reason to light from that side, but
And
yeah,
yeah, and so this is Mr. Dylan Earl,
Dylan Earl. Yep.
and yeah, I like the just the rawness of it. And this actually was in a raw space, in the kind of an upstairs of a warehouse type of
Yeah.
space. What was part of your idea with or thought process of the black and white? Why did you choose black and white over color?
Um, Mostly because I couldn't get the colors right in that place. like like the white balance of like, it's like there's different lights inside that place. Like they were like green and red and blue, and it just kind of I couldn't find a good balance. So they, black and white seemed to be the best, and just the simplistic kind of Richard Avedon style portraiture. Um, I really like the simplicity of it. I think that's like a running theme in all my photos is simplicity. Um, I don't really like things to be too complicated. I like them to be pretty. Some would say boring. I would say simple. But also, I was shooting probably around 300 photos every year at Valley of the Vapors. So it made post-production that much easier to go through and not have to adjust skin tones and white balance and everything. The black and white just made it roll a little bit faster. And I should have given you some photos because I use basically the same setup for SpaCon when I do photos there. And I do black and white there for the same reason, because it just it makes it run a little bit smoother in post. Um, and I think everybody looks pretty good in black and white. I don't know, you tell me, but I know like I like my black and white photos of myself more. I don't not all red in the nose or anything, so it kind of makes everybody look good. So that's kind of the idea behind it.
Yeah, and do you shoot in a rapid the rapid setting, or do you just do one at a time, or do you take a lot of multiples?
No, and that's kind of probably my film background coming into it is I don't shoot rapid at all. I'm very like slow and try to be methodical, and so no, I just like I even take a long time to like focus. That's that's kind of my whole thing is I'm just very slow.
All right. Well, and I've got looks like we have some questions piling up here, so I'll just put another photo on the screen that we can take a look at. Anything you'd like to say about this photo?
No, just sort of the same setup. Very like contrast. Like you can see one side is way brighter than the other, and that's just kind of that harsh, maybe goth look to that stuff that I really liked. And I don't know how old this photo is. It might be 5 years old, 6 years old.
Okay. Well, there's one question here that I think I'll just answer because it's a question that's what is Valley of the Vapors, and it's a independent independent music festival that is takes place usually a week before or after the South by Southwest festival in Austin, Texas. So it's independent musicians come to town, and it's usually 4 days or a week, and it's just a week of young independent musicians. And these are actually the two founders. This is Bill Solider uh, and his partner Shay Childs. They've actually passed the torch onto a new set of organizers, but I think they started it, boy, about 15 or 20 years ago.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
Yeah, it's been quite a. When was the first time you went to the festival?
I was, I think I was 16. I was driving. It was the first time I was like mobile. So that was 15 years ago. Um, yeah, we went there, and then I think we went every year after, and then when I kind of like got into photography, Bill asked me if I would do some photos um, of the. I think the first year I did it was 2014, and then yeah, just kind of my setup evolved. The first time I did it, they were in color. I don't know if you were there, but they were at Emergent Arts at like a party, and I did them in color, and it was just for the reception.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, so they evolved to this pretty much.
Yeah, and it's gotten pretty big. Yeah, they actually that's actually how I got to Hot Springs. They invited me to do an event in Hot Springs 10 or so years ago, a while ago.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
so yeah, I had never heard of Hot Springs before. I just and apparently just liked it a lot.
I like.
Yeah, so we've got a couple of questions here. So here's a short one here. How do you get the model's best angles or the best
Oh,
angles for your pictures?
you know what? So I was showing my mother-in-law about a year ago to always try to shoot above them. I'm really bad at portraits too, by the way. I picked out my best photos for this, but I always try to shoot above them because like I don't know if you can see like if I'm like below, like you'll get a double chin. Even if someone's like not chubby, like you'll still get a double chin. So, but if you shoot like down, like I always said like chin out and then down. So then that kind of takes care of that. That was always a good thing. So I'll tell the models like chin out and down, because it feels funny, but it doesn't look funny like when you get your photos back. And also like talking with someone, like I get really exhausted because I'm generally pretty quiet. So I get really exhausted after a photo shoot because I'm talking to them a bunch and trying to make things comfortable and trying to create like a convivial atmosphere to get them to relax because that really shines through if someone's tensed up or not relaxed. So spending the time and becoming friends for a little while before. um, Also if they're drinking alcohol, that helps. Not the photographer, but the subject.
The subject matter.
They're a little more relaxed after that. So which was the case with the Valley of the Vapors most of the time, except for Drew Martin. He doesn't drink, but he's just a really good model. I don't have to do much with him. Sometimes you get lucky, sometimes you don't, you know. And that's another thing that I struggled with portraiture is you can't please everybody. That's a really hard thing to come to terms with is um you can't you can't make everybody look like a model. Like you can try, but it's sometimes it's up to the powers that be. It's not really your choice.
Do you
So
do you encourage the models to look into the camera or look?
not all the time. No, sometimes like I've done portraits where they're kind of like looking past me, but if I have the camera here, sometimes I'm like I'll just do this to get their attention. Um, and just like that, it's kind of weird because I don't after a while you don't really think too much about it. If you just go with your gut and make enough mistakes and realize what works, pretty soon you're just kind of going with the flow of things and everything is just going. And uh and I will say that a lot of the time I get my best photos at the end of a shoot because everyone's loosened up and everyone's warmed up. So even and that goes as far as like even like a couple with their dog, like the best photos are going to be at the very last 5 minutes, even if it's an hour and a half shoot. And that was something I had to learn too. um, that's just part of is people having their guard up and giving them you know the grounds to relax, I guess.
And I'll just mention too. This is Drew Martin. He's from Hot Springs, and he's also really good photographer also. He
Sure.
takes Polaroid photographs. So he's another one. I think you can probably just type in Drew Martin photography, and he's
Yeah.
got. I don't know if he's got a website, but I know he's got an Instagram, and he's.
No, he's got his Instagram is like Drew Martin Photo, I think. But he shoots a lot of like street stuff in New York, like people on the sidewalk and stuff.
Uh, um, so yeah, Hot Springer in the Big Apple. Let's see here. I've got. We can go with another question, and this one's a little longer here, and I'm a bad reader here. But what do you do if you want to see a photo that you no longer have? If there's only one, do you keep any kind of photo history log to keep track of all the photos you've taken?
Yeah. So, and that's the thing too, is if you scan them in, I have a digital copy of them. But as far as like a print goes, like a big, like I've been printing really big, like 16 by 20 or something. Um, and so I have like a list, like I have like a little like archive list, like a book of them. And so, and then on the photo, it's like one of one, you know. So there's only that one that exists in the world, but I still have the scan in, which is what I sent you. Like some of those photos that are in there in this file um, are big photos at Justice, and that's the only one that will ever exist besides my book. Um, and I think that's just the painter aspect of me. Like there's proofs, there's artist proofs, but as far as like the print, like the print that I want to sell, there's only one of them. But I'll still have digital copies of everything.
So I assume you'll typically sign and number the prints. Maybe on
Yeah,
the.
exactly. So I'll do like 5 sometimes, and sometimes just one. Um, but yeah, I always keep the digital stuff. But yeah, I'm trying to make it more like a painting now. Like they're just their own thing, and then I have digital proofs of them.
Right. Do you remember which band this is?
Yeah, that's this band Hikes, and they're from Austin, Texas,
Okay.
and they they were staying with me at the time, so they felt pretty comfortable with me. And this is also I did a lot of band photos. I did band photos primarily there towards the end before I quit doing freelance. And the bands are easy because you get like 4 boys together, and they're just gonna goof off, and they're just gonna, you know, I didn't tell them to throw a bunch of money in the air. Like they just did it, and that's kind of your job too, is to quietly observe and to kind of let things play out the way they will, and to capture that, and capture that energy, and try to represent them and the way they are at that time.
Um, Question for my students here. L, is that Levi or is that Lance? Who's, oh, Patricia, that's you? Okay. L, okay. All right, so um, yeah, so you had to do this on, we've talked a little bit about shutter speed. I'm guessing this is a
Yeah.
shutter speed.
So yeah, I mean, do you talk to them about shutter speed in class?
Yeah, we talked a little bit about it. Yeah.
Yeah. So with this, I just had it as fast as I could, while still trying to get like have the proper exposure. Because I think with a flash, you can only go up to like 250, and then at that point your shutter is faster than the speed of light. So if you're above 250 on your camera, like the shutter speed, like half this photo would be black because your shutter is faster than the speed of light. So you have to kind of find that medium between things, and you'll see like the dollar bills and stuff, they're kind of blurry because they're lagging a little bit. um, so I think I was probably shooting at like It was faster than 60th. It was maybe like 100 or something.
Yeah, that's interesting. Photography is all a battle, a race with light.
That's
So
everything. Yeah, that's everything.
yeah, that's pretty interesting. All right, well, let's take a look at your landscape photos. And I guess what do you suggest, just starting from the top, or
Yeah,
any
it's up to you.
order? All right. And are most of these done in 35 millimeter, or what kind of
No,
film?
yeah, I only shoot 120 now. Um, and I don't, can you see me on here? Because I'll show you the camera.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's see here. I will.
So this is the camera that I use. It's kind
We
of,
actually, yeah, we have a camera like that here at the
oh, you
school.
do? Yeah, it's a big, heavy guy. And and I'm not fancy, as you can see, like it's like taped up because I get light leaks real bad on it. So yeah, the film will be kind of it'll have like white streaks going through it if I don't put tape on the back, and it gets kind of they get ugly. The photos get ugly. So, but yeah, I use this big guy for all those photos you're about to look at.
Great. Yeah, I'll have to. You'll have to give me a little tutorial on that at some point because yeah, like I say, we've got that camera, but
Oh,
I have
nice.
not used it yet. Let's see here. All right, so yeah, boy, this is uh very rare, of course, to get your lightning bolt here. Anything you want to just tell us about this photo?
No, I mean, okay, so with that big camera, um, I have to take a lot of time. I'm very like, I have to use a tripod and I have to go pretty slow, and and so like setting this up and then like waiting. It's more like I would compare it to like fishing more. You know, it's very slow, and I tried to do that with any sort of photography, whether it be digital 35 or this 120 millimeter film, which I don't know. Would they know? They probably don't know what 120 is. Maybe some of them do, but it's like 35 millimeter, but bigger. So it's just like a little bit bigger thing of film. You get more detail and things like that. But yeah, and this is a scanned in photo. So this I would say this is digital at this point. And the lightning, that was just happenstance. I was just shooting the storm, and then the lightning sort of just showed up. But you get this. I like the film because you get this kind of like vintage look, a little bit like kind of like kind of like painter style, kind of like a little crusty but not too much. And I really like that aesthetic, and the colors are a little different than digital, which I really like that.
Yeah, it looks nice.
Thank
Uh,
you.
uh, so where did you take this?
I shoot a lot in the Arkansas and Mississippi Delta. So this is down. Um, have you ever traveled like Little Rock to Memphis?
No, but I have been down to Louisiana and up to as
Yeah,
far as Iowa. I've only been as far down as Louisiana and then as far up as Iowa.
yeah, yeah. The land is sort of like Iowa. Like it's very like flat. It's an alluvial floodplain. So it's almost like as close to the desert as Arkansas can get. So it's like Little Rock East is this kind of land where they grow cotton and things like that. So I like to shoot out there because I don't know why, but I kind of gravitate towards big skies, which is kind of weird because living in Hot Springs, we have a lot of trees and you don't really see so much as of the sky. So I think I'm kind of drawn to that flat landscape where there's like a lot of sky, and it kind of goes along with my simplicity of shooting. Like there's not a lot going on. Like it's a lot of sky and a lot of, just greenery and trees, and
And,
then the storm
yeah,
being like,
probably hard to find flat land in Arkansas, isn't it?
yeah, and that's why I just go to this area. And and actually, like about half the state of Arkansas is pretty flat. The whole east half, like along from Little Rock east to the Mississippi River, is like this kind of land. Anyone who's vacationed in Florida, having to drive, they go through all this kind of land, and it's very, very boring. And but if you can stop and like appreciate it, there's no one out there either. It's a very lonely place, which is it's nice because I'll take my dog and he can run around, and not he doesn't have to worry about like cars or anything. Lots of dirt roads. Very it's a very, very nice place, and not too many photographers explore it, which is kind of why I gravitated towards it.
Uh,
So, so what I mean, how did you get that did you get that flash just how did that flash just appear just as you took the picture, or
Yeah, I mean, I knew there was a chance I was gonna get it, but um, I didn't know I got the lightning, because that's the other thing. Like shooting film, you you take a photo and you don't get that. You can't just look at your phone or the back of the camera. You have to wait like 3 weeks, like sometimes more, before you know what you got. And so I was pretty floored when I got this photo back, and it had been like a month. And it's kind of fun too to send off a roll of film to get developed, because I'll get stuff back and I forgot I even took it. Like without looking at my journal or my notes, I wouldn't know I even took it. So it was definitely a surprise. It was a happy accident to get this.
so I mean, how much of your photos are landscapes like this?
A lot of them now. I don't do too much portrait work these days. A lot of it is landscape stuff. I think being from Arkansas, born and raised, I'm pretty interested in like the weather and like being outside and stuff.
Yeah.
And it feels more like fishing or hunting than anything else. So yeah, this is kind of this is the meat to my potatoes these days.
do you do much of any color correction, or do you mainly just use the raw film?
I try to keep it as close to it as I can. One thing I will do is I will overexpose all my photos by one stop. So, if I'm shooting 125, like at that shutter speed, I'll go to 60. And it kind of overexposes a little bit, warms it up. And then so also like the sky is blown out a little bit here, but then you get a little more detail in the shadows and a little more detail in the in between. Um, and that's kind of like how I get my colors for the most part, is overexposed by one stop. Um, but no, not too much. I try to leave it as close to the film as I can. I'll take out dust and scratches in Photoshop. You'll do Photoshop, right?
Yeah, we do a little bit of Photoshop.
Okay. Yeah, I'll take out like the dust and scratches and stuff, but as far as like color correction, like no, not really.
Now, when you're shooting on large format, there's quite a lot of resolution. Just off
Yeah.
the top of your head, when you're scanning, what kind of a DPI do you think you need to scan
I
at?
can't remember. Some of it's really big. Some of it's like takes forever to do. Maybe like 1200. Does that sound right?
I would have guessed probably about 1200. Yeah.
Yeah, it's about 1200. Which my printer is like, he's like more like, you need more, like scan it more. But since I'm having like Annie Gerber scan my film at the moment, she I don't know what, I look at it whenever I get it back, but I try to keep it at like 1200. But I'll have her rescan stuff at a higher resolution so I can print bigger.
I always really like looking at the edges of a film scan too when it
Yeah,
is
that's kind of like a newer thing for this project that I really, really liked. And I tried to keep. I like that, like the frame on the photo. And actually, you know, I've been printing photos instead of just printing like an 8x10. I'll print an 8x10, but then shrink the photo down on the paper. And instead of matting my photos, I'll just use this white border as the mat, and it looks pretty good.
So when you're out shooting, do you go out on photo missions where you're going to be shooting, or do you just keep your camera with you just in case?
No, I never, like, I'm like not a photographer's photographer. Like, I never have a camera on me. Um, I usually, like, I set out like with the purpose. Um, and I have to say it's more like music, or it's not like playing music or something. Like, I have to be in a certain mood to go out and take photos. And usually I'm driving pretty far. I think there was one day we left at 5:30 or 6 a.m. and then we'll get back at like 7 or 8 at night. And then so it's like it's a long day of shooting and driving to like West Helena and back and things like that, or like Mississippi and back. So I definitely, like, I'll set aside an entire Sunday to go shoot. But yeah, and you know, and that's the thing too, is I've gone out for like an entire day to shoot and not taken a single photo. Like, I've spent like $40 on gas and food and like not taken a single photo just because I didn't have like the right feeling, or I probably even saw stuff I didn't like, but I wasn't in the mood to really do it.
Well, that's a good discipline, and it's something that when you're shooting on film, it forces you to be so selective with your image. I think that's one
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, and I think, but I mean, with film, definitely, because my roll of film only has 10 photos, so I have to be very selective. And with that, I've probably passed up some good opportunities too. But I started thinking about it, and I was kind of like that with digital too. That way, I just didn't have to go through as many photos to to edit or anything. Even when I went to school at National Park, I think I tried to shoot a small amount because I think I did a wedding for somebody when I was real young, and I just took all the photos I could. And when I got it back to edit the photos, I was like, there's like 2,000 photos I have to go through. Like, I learned my lesson very quick to not shoot everything.
Yeah, well, this is just a really interesting photo. It looks like it's manicured.
Yeah, it's weird. I think
Yeah.
that's the weird thing too, is out in these places you'll find these things that look almost intentional. Like, it almost looks like, but again, like, no farmer is going to be like, oh, I should like trim this here, or I should cut this here, like that'll look interesting. It's just odd that like people do these things, but I find them like aesthetically pleasing in the oddest way. So yeah, it's really weird, and I don't know, I guess it's like a water tower or something. I don't know, but definitely odd.
Let's see here. Yeah, I really like this rust color here on the side of the road here, and then no
Yeah.
shoulder, the rawness of it.
Yeah, that's another one of those East Arkansas photos, where there's really nothing out there. But you know, it's kind of, that's another one of those weird things. It's like, why not, like, why cut it off? Like, why not cut it off? Or why leave it? Or why like, well, I don't even know what's going on. Like, it's just odd. There's nothing going on except for that. It almost looks like a cactus or something out there. And It's not. It's a power pole. It's a big power pole, and
Ah,
it's really odd.
can you talk a little bit about the process of how you're driving along and when you have that spark of just seeing the photo in your head, or maybe what might drive you to stop and actually take a photo?
Yeah, I think it's sort of just a gut feeling of. I think with a lot of these photos, I'm trying to represent my feelings of Arkansas or the South in general. Um, and yeah, I'm not much of a writer. I'm not much of a musician. Um, I'm not much of a speaker. This is my way to express like how romantic I think like this place is. Like, like to me, this photo speaks humidity. It speaks dust. It speaks, um, it speaks the history of like racial tensions, all of that stuff, cicadas, honeysuckles, like all that stuff is combined. I try to represent that in each photo I take these days. Um, and to people that don't live in Arkansas, like or the South, a lot of this stuff is really odd. Like it's very strange. Like it doesn't make a lot of sense. Like why does someone have an old car parked in their driveway or in their yard, and they just what, like never fixed it, or they just left it there? Like do they think it's an art piece, or is it just doesn't make any sense? Like why not take it somewhere or sell it? But instead they leave it there, and they'll even cut the grass around it. They'll just, it's the oddest thing. So there's a lot of that going on in these photos.
Yeah, it's interesting. I kind of notice in Arkansas and wherever somebody lives, if you the best way to get motivated for taking pictures or video or anything where you're at, it's to leave and then
Mhm.
come back and you have this totally new perspective.
Yeah, it's true. And then so that's the thing too, is I have to step away from this a little while, and then I'll go back. And when I'm driving down the road and I see something, well, I'm just like, most of the time I'm like, that's kind of odd, that's weird. Or sometimes I'm not feeling romantic at all, and I probably don't notice anything. Like, um, so it all depends on the day and the way the light's hitting things. And and I like to go out too, like on a stormy day or an overcast day, you'll notice things that you didn't notice when the sun was out. And that's just the way it is. Like when the power goes out in your house, like your house feels a lot different than it does, when the power's on. It's just, it's all about the environment. You can put the same thing in a different environment and completely different. So depending on everything coming together, that's kind of when I'll stop and take a photo.
Great. Do you think this is from the same trip?
One of them, yeah. This is in West Helena, um, on the Mississippi River. And so they planted, for those who don't know, kudzu is an invasive species of plant root, um, and they planted it on hills to stop erosion. Um, so on the Mississippi River, you'll see a lot of it. You'll see a lot of it along the banks of creeks. And a long time ago, they planted it to stop the hills from eroding into the Mississippi River. But it's very, it's very healthy, and it loves humidity. And so they kind of messed up. And the only way to get rid of it is goats or like a bulldozer. So it's taken over almost this entire town. Um, that's a power pole. That's basically a mountain of kudzu. And you can see it growing up the side of the house here, and it's all around the back. And yeah, it's very the man versus nature, and those two things colliding, happening just before our eyes, you know.
There's a really great book by a guy, I'm sure you know, J.D. Wilkes,
Yeah. Oh, The Vine That Ate Itself, or
The
is that
Vine
what's
That
called?
Ate the South. Yeah, so that's
Ate the South. Yeah. Yeah, I have that book.
oh, you have that book. Yeah, so that's I'd recommend that. He's from Kentucky, but he's been to Hot Springs many times. It's a really
Yeah, yeah,
interesting.
he's a great musician.
One thing I want to ask you about, we did have Liv Sanders on a few weeks ago, and we talked about it a little bit, but I always like asking artists right at this time about being creative during this year of isolation and are, how is your creative energy now as an artist? Is it have you been stalled or
Yeah.
because most are at this
You
time.
know, it's funny because I was trying to finish this project to show in galleries, um, in Mississippi and North Arkansas and hopefully Dallas, and all of that just just fell beneath me, you know. And there was no talk of reschedule. It was just like, we're not going to do it. We don't know what's going on. Like, we as a gallery, we might not even make it. So I turned this whole project um, into a book over this time of being quarantined or dealing with the pandemic. And at the beginning, I was like, this is perfect. Like, I won't have a whole lot going on. I can't really see my friends. I should go out every weekend and shoot. But it was kind of the opposite. I almost felt, and don't get me wrong, I'm a homebody. I thrive on being alone. I'm an only child. I'm great at this. But for some reason, there was no spark. I was not creative at all. Like, I even talked to Dolores at Justice. I was like, is it okay that I'm not making anything? Like, I was like, I feel brain dead. Like, I feel emotionally exhausted. And she's like, that's normal right now. The best thing you can do is, you know, print your stuff, get your stuff in order, and kind of use this time however you think you need to. And when I sent some photos to get printed by my printer in Little Rock, and I was like, so, like, how's business? And he's like, this is the busiest I have ever been. And I think it's because artists were like sitting around and they're like, you know what, maybe I'll get all that stuff printed, or maybe I'll finish that painting and all that stuff. So a lot of people are thriving, but I sort of shut down emotionally. I've only taken a couple of photos since probably May of, yeah. Oh, yeah, it's been a long time. I haven't been doing anything, Dan.
Well,
But
that's
what did she say? I'm curious because I love her work.
yeah, it was a good talk, and I think we recorded it. I can probably send you the link for it. I think you know, we ran out of time. We should. That's something that I wanted to maybe talk to you a little bit more earlier before we ran out of time. But similar, the idea of I think just a lot of artists are I don't know if struggling is the right word, but it's difficult to have that creative spark right now with how things are shut down and the duration of
Yeah.
that. And I think that's just an important thing to be open about. I think a lot of artists are kind of hard on themselves for not creating more now. But
Yeah.
it's difficult. Yeah, it's a difficult time.
No. And you're, you know, and for everyone in this class too, creating, you know, your environment has everything to do with your work. I mean, in order to take a good photo, you really have to take photos of things that are close to you. Um, you know, and then with that right now, it's like what, like take a bunch of photos of your house, like, because you're there all the time. Like, I don't, you know, I don't know. So that's hard right now.
Well, and I know that's what the class here. That's something everybody's a little bit struggling with because we have to take, it's a photo class, you have to take a lot of photos, and I think the students really have to be creative with thinking of ideas right now. And then, in our next week, we'll be trying to do portraits, and I'm trying to think of how we deal.
Yeah, is everybody in a mask?
Yeah, it's a little tricky because we have a really great studio space here too, but it's
Yeah, you do.
yeah, it's kind of difficult to use the studio a lot right now.
Yeah, those times.
But it's also a situation where limitations sometimes spark creativity in certain cases too.
Yeah, I'm really good about setting boundaries for myself. Like I can, like for this project, I was like, I can only shoot from Hot Springs East. So there were boundaries and things like that, and I can only use this film and that kind of stuff. So and I think that comes from being in school, from photography school, where they would be like, "Here's your subject." Here, except now, I get to set my own kind of parameters.
And is this in the same area? And
this is in Hot Springs.
Oh, this is in Hot Springs. Oh, okay. Yeah, we have.
Yeah, it's down there. It's by Valley Street, kind of.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it doesn't look like it, but it is. So we have some of that kudzu stuff that I was talking about in Hot Springs over by what is that baseball field? The Majestic, the one they're building by the Greenway.
Oh yeah, I forget what it's called.
I think it's Majestic, but it used to be anyway. But yeah, this is kind of over by there.
Ooh boy, this is really just a nice image. Just the low saturation of it.
Yeah. Yeah, the kind of like flatness, while still being kind of colorful is nice. And you get that with that film. I shot this down in Arkadelphia on the Washita River.
Yeah, and this, I'm guessing maybe a truck or something might have driven by.
Yeah, I think it was probably, I think if I remember right, it was me, and I looked in the rearview mirror and I was like, that looks magical, like just with the sun. That totally accident. And that happens too. Like if any of your students, like if any of you guys are ever just out of ideas, like sometimes go drive around. Like sometimes things just present themselves to you. And if you're shooting digital and you don't have to worry about the money, just take a photo of it. Like it might work out, and that's me. And this is, perfect example of that, of, this might've been the only photo I took that day.
Yeah, really, just a really nice image. Yeah, just the haze off in the distance here. Yeah, and I've noticed that too a little bit. I was looking back at some summer photos and just thinking, wow, you go back and see photos from a different season or different time, and sometimes there's just something exciting about that.
Oh, that's true. It's true. And the thing too is I really like the summertime in Arkansas because of the lakes and things, and I love baseball and all those things. And so you'll see a lot of my photos are not taken in the wintertime. Like they're just not. So like if I was in a photography class right now and they were like, go do some landscape photos, I don't know if I'd be able to. And now I used to be hard on myself about that, but now that's okay.
I hate to even take this down here. I like this photo so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, do you remember what it looks like? Maybe springtime? Just
a little springtime. Yeah, that's a bunch of wisteria. And this is in Hot Springs too. This is right by the Boys and Girls Club, kind of close to that wisteria area, or the kudzu area from that other photo, the train tracks. And this is where they're building the baseball field now. along the Greenway in the Hot Springs Creek. But I just thought it was odd, those two chairs sitting there. It was just, it like, why? Like, why are those there? There's no reason. So, and they're both like the red and blue with the wisteria purple. And then I think there's like a puddle in the foreground. It's just very pretty and then odd. Once again, just odd things of living in Arkansas.
Yeah, just the color combination here is just eye candy. You know, it's the only way.
Yeah, it's true.
And then this nice soft baby blue.
I hope people from this photo get the feeling of like, you know, those like first couple of spring days and like your allergies like aren't bothering you, but everything's starting to turn green, and it's like a good 69 but with sunshine and a slight breeze. Like this is like that, like it was taken on like one of those days, and for some reason the photo kind of conveys that to me, because other photos will feel like hot and humid, but this photo feels like good times to me. I don't know why, while still being just completely odd.
Yeah, and these chairs, they're the same color. It's kind of the red and the green, and they're right next to each other. It's
Yeah, I planned that.
yeah, it's really and then just looking off into the shrub.
Yeah, I wonder, like, were people sitting there just like bored? Like, I don't know, like, or maybe they were waiting for this whole social distancing thing, and they were like, we're gonna need these chairs here because pretty soon we're gonna not be able to see anybody except for just stare at the train tracks and the wisteria.
Yeah, almost like they're just watching life as a movie play by here. It's really something.
My kind of activity.
Yeah. All right, let's see, what have we got here? Yeah, just a few more. I guess we'll get on time.
That's a sunrise in East Arkansas. Over looks like harvested corn. Does this where you from? Nebraska, Iowa?
Minnesota, northern Minnesota.
Does that count?
As that count as what? As
Is there like this kind of land up there? Well, you have to drive over this kind of land. Like
yeah, I have to drive through going through Iowa, and yeah, quite a bit of time through Iowa.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, where I'm at, it's kind of more in southern Minnesota is a little bit like this, but then
okay,
where there's a little more woods up north. But yeah, we talked a little bit in the class about how in the middle of the country you get these real nice horizons where you can. Yeah, actually, we're just talking about how getting the sun right at that horizon line.
It's really hard.
It is, yeah, it is hard. Yeah,
it's hard. I like that early morning and early evening, or late evening, just the blue with the gold, and I mean, have you guys talked about like the golden hour and stuff? Like taking portraits in that is amazing, whether you're shooting in color or black and white. I used to do my portraits that time of day, like in the evening when everything's just gold. And then I just started doing my landscapes the same way, and you get the same effect. So I really like it.
Yeah, this is a really nice image. Yeah, over the summer when there were fires going on in California, I was driving through, I think, Iowa or Nebraska, and for about a minute, the sun was about this big. And I went and grabbed my camera, and I was like, oh, I don't have quite the right angle. And I walked about a third of a block up, and it was gone. Yep. But it was just like, wow, something about, if there's an atmospheric thing going on, like a fire, of course we don't want that, but get some.
Well, that's the thing too, is, do you remember that sunset at the drive-in? I don't think in my entire life seen a sunset like that or since then, and I'm not sure that I ever will. And so, and me, even though the sunset lasted like 30 minutes for some weird reason, by the time I set up my tripod, I would have still missed it. I don't know why. It's just my luck. But and that's the thing too, is you're never gonna get anything good unless you're out there. You know, you gotta put yourself in the situation. Like you'll never catch any fish if you don't go fishing. You know, it's just how it is.
Yeah, and that was at the Low Key Arts did a drive-in movie at the mall.
Yeah.
And it was right around the time of one of the hurricanes, and I think that might have
That's true. That is true.
yeah. And I took some photos of that. I might put them, share them with the class because yeah, it was really just having there was a movie being shown and then a band playing and yeah, it was probably the best sunset I've ever seen.
Me too.
Although this is like, I mean, sunsets get to a point where it's hard to rate sunsets because I mean, this is a really nice sunset. How can you say this is like, oh, this is like a B- sunset?
I think it's like more it's a B plus. I don't know. Actually, no. Actually, after that one sunset, everything is like an F. So, but no, yeah. I just wanted to. It's nice this area where I shoot a lot. There's not a lot of people that live there, and they're pretty secluded. So it's nice to just see what they see. You know, sometimes because they live like a very like almost like monks out there. They're not I mean, it's like you think about it, like the closest grocery store is an hour away. There's no other houses near. They're living very simple and very like lonely in a way. And so like seeing what they see, like sunrises, sunsets, like storms and stuff, like it's very interesting to just put yourself in the position of like what other people, like average Americans, are experiencing.
Well, let's see. Yeah, and I agree with you right there. We've got another 5 or 10 minutes. So if anybody has any questions for Robbie, this might be a good time. If you have any, let's see, I've got one that came up. Do you have any suggestions for making portrait subjects more comfortable if you don't have the best people skills?
You know, I always try to find it's sort of like dating or something, just finding common ground. Like, um, you know, like I'm even like the worst. Like I'll just be like, sorry I'm late. Like I'll make up something like, sorry I'm late. Like my dog like got out, and they're like, oh, what kind of dog do you have? And I'll tell them, and then like we just start talking about dogs or, you know, or like just trying to find anything like common ground. Like even just complimenting someone's like shoes or something like really like is it helps them to relax a little bit or um maybe make a mistake like on purpose. Like just be vulnerable. It's kind of funny because you start taking photos and you think you're just going to take photos and it turns out sometimes you're a counselor and sometimes sometimes you're just there to like entertain and but just you know I try to think about what makes you feel comfortable when you're uncomfortable and maybe just try to do those things um, because truly it's like everyone is generally pretty uncomfortable most of the time. So anything you can do it helps, but definitely there's like a warm-up period when you're taking someone's portrait. You know, walking and talking goes a long way.
It seems like catching people off guard sometimes too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, there's that too. Just you know, because if you'll watch videos of photographers shooting models, a lot of times the model doesn't stop moving. She's kind of they're like kind of like just keep moving like that, and then they're just kind of shooting, and then out of that comes a photo. So sometimes that kind of stuff is the best thing to do. there's another photo. I think it's the last photo of that. Yeah, that's my friend Sophie, and she hates getting her photo taken. So this was one of those situations where I think I even told her, I was like I'm not gonna take your photo. I'm just like measuring for the light, and then I just had her stand there and I took a photo. So she was kind of like relaxed and stuff, because she's like, I'm not. Oh, he's not taking a photo, and then there, And then another thing I learned is if someone's like looking into the sun, like if the sun or the light is in their eyes, have them close their eyes and count to 3, and when they open it, their eyes won't be squinty because they just open their eyes and shoot like as soon as they open their eyes. That was another thing I learned for portraiture.
Good trick, yeah. Yeah, I remember when I was in elementary school, the guy who took photos would always have us say pickles. That was like the thing.
Why? Just because it's weird? They're like, why pickles?
Yeah, I know. You know what it is.
Yeah, because it probably takes your mind off of you're like, what? Like all the kids, like all the pictures look confused. They're like, what? Pickles. So how long are your classes? 2:30?
We're just kind of wrapping up. We've got about another few minutes. So let's see. Anybody else have any questions? As we're kind of wrapping things up.
No question is too dumb.
It's all right. So, what are those trees in the background? Those oaks or?
It's probably like a mixture. It's kind of I took this photo kind of near kind of off Black Snake Road. So it's probably like oaks, and then like there's some vines. I like the vines a lot.
Off Black.
To the left of her, you'll see some vines, and then the rest is just some oak woods.
So,
pine tree in there.
So I guess that means it's right around where I am right now, because I.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Take some people in the woods and do some portraits.
Yeah, I live in Tiny Loop, so don't live too far away from where.
Where do you live?
Tiny Loop.
Oh, okay. Where's that at?
Oh, but it's a subdivision right outside of the town. It's like 10 minutes away from the college.
Oh, cool. Yeah, you live in a good area to take some people and do some portraits. And it's really nice too if you can put your subject in the shadows, and then behind them is kind of blown out from the sunlight, and you'll get a lot of that in the deep woods and stuff.
I got a like a what do they call it? It's like a big drop off behind my house. So that's like that's a bluff, right? Or is that a berm? Yeah, a bluff, right?
Oh, cool. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, and I got a berm in the front, the other end.
Yeah, use all of that. Use all of it to your advantage.
Yeah.
Okay, looks like we got one more question for you here, and it's been great looking at your photos here, Robbie. It's really been a fun day here, but let's see, we've got when you're talking about some people being good models and some that aren't, what do you think makes a person a naturally good person to take a photo of?
Some people are just really full of themselves. Like my friend Drew Martin, like he knows he looks good. Like he's just got it. And I don't even think he looks that good, but he thinks he looks good, so it makes him comfortable in the photos. I'm halfway joking, but yeah, I mean, sometimes people are just uncomfortable getting their photo taken, and that kind of shines through a lot. But you'll get people who just don't, like, you'll tell them to do something and they just refuse to do it. Not refuse to, but you'll be like, okay, like, can you make your head like shift it this way a little bit? And then they'll do it for a second and then it goes back, and you feel like a jerk telling them to keep doing it. But if you know best, if you have the best intentions and they still refuse to do it, I mean, there's nothing you can do about that. I've taken tons of photos of people and gave them their photos, and they were like, these are terrible. And I'm like, well, you didn't really listen to what I was kind of, telling you to do. So you're going to run into all kinds of stuff like that. Some people are just easy to work with and some people aren't. And you're going to find that in any job or anything that you do in life. So sort of just normal like that.
Appreciate you sharing these photos here. And
Thanks a lot for having me.
yeah. Hopefully we'll see you at some kind of event, or hopefully the world normalizes here sometime soon. So.
Hope so.
All right. Well, I will let you go, and everybody give Robbie a good wave. I just have a couple things to say to the class here before I let you go, but Robbie, we'll catch you later. Have a good one out there.
You guys stay safe. Bye.
Thank you so much.
Yep.
Bye. Have fun.